Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jay Christensen alongside Melissa Doremus, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Reentry Roads podcast, proudly presented by Workbay. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the challenges faced by individuals transitioning from incarceration back into society. We're going to take a deep dive into the realities of reentry, uncovering the obstacles, both known and perceived. And more importantly, we'll be dissecting the pitfalls that people encounter, the ones they expect, the ones they fear, and the ones that take them completely by surprise. And to bring it to full perspective, we'll also be inviting correctional professionals to weigh in. Their insights will help us determine whether a gap exists between perception and the reality in identifying the most significant contributors to recidivism. Today, we had the privilege of welcoming two incredible guests. First, we're going to hear from Cory Simek, a powerful testimony to resilience and transformation. Once incarcerated, he is now a success story, proving that second chances can lead to meaningful change. Following Cory, we'll gain a deeper insight to the significance of his journey from John Palish, founder and CEO of One Workforce Solutions. His expertise in workforce development will provide a valuable context on the importance of access to opportunities for individuals seeking to rebuild their lives. And with that, let's bring Cory on.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How you doing, Cory?
Hi, Cory.
Hey, I am great and getting greater by the day. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Let's start out, Cory, about how do we meet? How do we find each other? How did this come about?
So this is crazy. I had been in prison, and some of the people had heard my story. They did a news article about me, and they invited me to come speak in the prison. So as I'm walking through getting searched to go into the prison, I run into you and find out that you are a former prison warden, but also turned out to be a great guy. And, here we are today.
Well, we listened to your presentation that day. That was the Reentry Express at the Alfred Hughes unit. And you really inspired that crowd. And I think that's what's going to make you a great guest here. I would like you to tell your story about what you were talking about on that stage. And you had a lot of really great insights for them to share. But to add to that, you also shared with me on the phone on a different call about how you almost went back. And if you could tell us about that too, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it both. Well, my name is Cory Simek, or as everyone out here in the free world calls me, Cory with the keys. And I am a car dealership owner. I'm a real estate investor. I have a nonprofit, and I'm signed to a music label. And I say all that not to brag, but I say it because prior to that, I'm a 4-time felon. I was a drug addict. I was homeless. I did 6 years incarcerated, and I was the one that everyone had counted out and thought I was going to be another statistic and a failure. And I determined not to let that be my story. So just to kind of break that down for you guys, I had a troubled childhood. My mom, she sold drugs and she struggled with addiction. Great lady, but she struggled. My father was in prison, so I didn't have any male guidance. I started going down the wrong path. I've always had a passion for sales. I always wanted to live a better life, but I got into the wrong kind of sales. because I believe that the only way to get out the struggle was if you either, had a rich family or you sold drugs. So I started selling drugs. And I had many warnings. I feel like what I call God, everybody's got their own beliefs, but what I call God would give me a slap on the wrist and a warning. I went to state jail for 6 months one time. And I'm like, man, that's not going to stop me. So ended up going to state jail again for 9 months and still was determined to keep living that life. And then when the judge hit me for 6 years, they charged me with something called a drug-free zone. So I had got caught with marijuana. I'm thinking it's not a big deal. Got 6 years sentence. My lawyer told me I would only go and do a few months and I'd make it home. Well, in Texas, they have something called a drug-free zone. So if you get caught within 1,000 feet of a school, they enhance it, and it's a minimum of 5 years. And if you have over 5 years, you have to serve the 5 before you see parole. So I'm a young kid sitting in there, and I'm told, like, hey, you don't even have a chance at going home until 5 years. And that's when it really hit me. That's when it was like, wow, I can't call mama. I can't call the preacher. I can't call nobody. This is my life. And I'm looking around at all the chaos and people fighting and stealing and yelling. And I'm like, man, this is how I have to live my life. And after I was sick for a while and depressed, I finally came to the realization, like, I can't go anywhere. So I've got one of two choices. Either I can just sit in here and waste this time and get out in 6 years and be in the same position, or I can choose to make this time serve me and I can get out of here and hit the ground running and change my lifestyle. So that's what I decided to do. The entire 6 years, I looked at it as if it was a boot camp. I decided to read every book I could get my hand on, take every class I could take, study real estate, had journals writing down my plans, my 1 year plan, my 5 year plan. And it seemed like the day I would be released would never come. But inevitably, it does come, and it did come. And I eventually made it out. And now, you talk a big game, but now you have to put it into action. So, they give you $100 and send you on your way, and you got to figure it out. And I always tell people, it is harder for a felon sometimes to get certain opportunities, but the opportunities are out there if you want them. Me, the first thing, I needed to have money. So the only job I had ever had besides selling drugs was working as a waiter. So I actually got in a suit and tie and went to Chili's in Temple and applied in a suit and tie and said, hey, look, I know I've got a record, but I promise you I'm going to be the hardest worker. I'm going to be the first one there, the last one to leave. I'm going to be the best waiter you've ever seen. And they're like, dude, you came in a suit and tie to Chili's. You're hired. But I fulfilled what I said. I worked hard. I was the first one there, last to leave. They loved me. But I knew I wanted something greater. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life as a server. So while I was in prison, somebody told me that I would make a good car salesman. I'm like, why? And they said, well, your personality, the way you communicate with people, and car salesmen, they can make dope boy money. The type of money you were used to making, you can make that legally, and they don't mind if you are a felon as long as you sell cars. So I had my same little Walmart suit and tie, and in between shifts, I would work the lunch shift. Nothing like Chili's baby back ribs. I go put on my suit and tie, and I would go hit different car dealerships. And I got turned down again and again and again. I didn't have certain tools like some people have now with the Workday. I just refused to quit. And eventually I went to a place and I just told them, hey, look, I'm going to be the best car salesman you ever had. I kind of had to fabricate the truth just a little bit. I said, man, I've been selling cars for the last 5 years. I'm going to be the best salesman you ever had. I'm going to outwork everybody. And they're like, wow, we're going to give you a chance. And so they gave me a chance, and I did that. I didn't know anything about cars. I didn't even know where a VIN number was, but I was determined. I was determined to live a better life. So, and that's the thing. Out here now, we have the world at our fingertips. We have YouTube. We have Google. I watched every video I could watch on car sales, studied everything I could study, and I just dedicated my life to, it's either this or flipping burgers for the rest of my life or doing something else that's going to send me back to prison. So in my first month, I became the top salesman in the used car division. Next month, I became the top salesman in all 3 companies. And I remained the top salesman for the next 3 years. And eventually I realized, hey, I'm making these guys a lot of money. How can I do this on my own? And, you know, we are taught to have limited beliefs a lot of times. A lot of people told me, man, you're a felon. They're not going to give you a dealer's license. Don't even try. But I did try. And we can do anything that we put our minds to, you know, if we're willing to put in the work. So I did apply for my dealer's license. And it's not easy. They tried to block me. They didn't want to let me have it. But I refused to quit and eventually did get my dealer's license, started a very successful car dealership. And, you know, as I started making money, I started studying like, hey, what do people do when they're making a good amount of money? What's next? Oh, well, they invested in real estate. How do I do that? I started watching videos on how I could get into real estate and the right ways to invest my money and put it into action. You know, the information's all out there. It's just up to you to study the information and put it into action. And while I'm doing all this, I always had a passion for music. And I remember I would be beating on the tables in prison and all the guys around me like, man, do another one, do another song. And I would sing and I wrote in my prison journals that I'm going to get out and I'm going to do something with my music as well. And I'm going to get signed to a record label. So now I have the car dealership. I'm doing the real estate. And now I start investing in my music, going to the studio, getting the beats, doing everything that it took to do the music. And I actually ended up linking up with a celebrity that liked my music that ended up signing me to a record label. So everything in those prison journals that I wrote down, that I'm going to own a business, that I'm going to buy multiple properties, that I'm going to get signed to a record label, all those things I was able to do. And this is coming from somebody that had a GED that I got in prison, 4 felonies, from the trailer park, homeless, drug addicted. And so I know that if I can do these things, that anybody that chooses to put their mind to it can do these same things. And I know it's going to be a heck of a lot easier when they have programs like Workday to give them some guidance and have a little leverage before they step out into those streets. So that's a little bit about my story.
Yeah. So Cory, I'm kind of interested in asking you a question. What kept your focus? What were some things that kept you kind of going down that path and having focus? Because a lot of people say they'll look at you and they say you have all this success and all of these things, but how did you start? How did you get there?
You know, something that I'm real big on and I encourage everybody to do, I read a lot of self-help books on manifestation, think and grow rich, how to win friends and influence people. And I realized that a lot of success has not so much to do with external circumstances, but with your mindset. If you have a positive mindset, you can really achieve what you want. So I knew that it was possible. I just had to enact it myself. And I'm fueled by 2 things. There were a select few people that believed in me and know that I had the potential. I wanted to prove them right. And then I had a whole lot of haters that doubted me, that said, you'll be right back. You're never going to be anything. And I wanted to prove them wrong. And the beautiful thing about being in prison is, you know, I came to a point where I wasn't getting visits. I wasn't getting commissary. Everybody had forgotten about me. I felt so alone. The girl I was with stopped talking to me. She got with somebody else. And I was so depressed and so beaten down. But there was this beautiful moment where I said, you know what? Nothing else can hurt me. I'm already at the bottom. I'm already as low as you can possibly go. It can only be up from here. And when I had that sense of freedom, like, hey, I've already experienced the worst. It's got to get better. It was a certain sense of freedom. And it did start getting better. And I'm not going to lie, when you get out in the world and these bills are hitting and your kids need stuff and all these million things are going at you 24/7, it gets frustrating and it gets scary. But I would tell myself, like, hey, remember when you were sitting in that cell and your stomach was touching your back and you couldn't go to the fridge and get something to eat? You got a fridge right there, dude. Quit crying, get up and get it. You know what I mean? So I think once you've been in that situation, if you remind yourself where you were, even though it gets stressful out here, it's a lot better than where it could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Cory, we had a pretty heartfelt conversation on the phone about your family and how you almost lost them, and now that you have them and how grateful you are for that. Can you tell me about Can you recap that for me?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I think this is an important thing to discuss as well. You know, sometimes success can be dangerous as well when you're experiencing success on a new level. So once I got in the car business, I started making a lot of money. And it was the first time in my life, like, hey, I don't have to sell all these drugs to get money. I got plenty of money. And now I can just have fun. I can go buy drugs and I can party. And as long as I'm still going to work and selling cars and doing what I'm supposed to do, nobody should judge me. I'm still taking care of my family. And it's easy to get pulled back into that lifestyle. And I eventually did. You know, it started as fun and games. I'm going to work. I'm still partying a little bit. The next thing you know, the stuff got a hold of me. And, you know, I split up with my kid's mother. She took off with the kids. I wasn't able to see them. I was losing everything that I had gained slowly but surely. I was one missed mortgage payment away from losing my house. I had lost all my vehicles except for one little raggedy vehicle that I had left. I had lost my family. I had lost everything. And at that point, I was like, dude, you're on the path going back to where you were, and you got to get it together. And so I quit everything. My main motivation was my daughters. I didn't want them to grow up like I did without having a dad. And so I got completely sober, got refocused, locked in, and then achieved more than I'd ever imagined being sober. So I think sobriety is an important factor. Don't get fooled into thinking, hey, I'm working hard. I have me a few beers after work. Can't tell me nothing. Because that's my mind frame. And those few beers ended up like, man, I'm kind of drunk. Maybe I could do something to wake me up a little bit. Oh, let me drive over here. Oh, DWI. You know, so it is easy to get too comfortable when you start doing good. So you got to watch out for that.
Cory, I want to take you back when you were on the inside, and I want to talk a little bit about if there's somebody right now that is in the place that you were while you were in the inside, and they're kind of stuck in that, you know, they're not really sure which way to go. What's some advice that you could give them to kind of get started on something like that? You know, you talked a little bit about that, or reading books, and is there anything in particular that you could talk about that you might steer somebody in a direction that might get them out of that stuck mode that they're in?
Absolutely. So one thing I do want to touch base on, and this may not be for everybody, but, you know, a lot of us are taught, hey, you could be a welder, you could be a truck driver, you could do NDT, some of the jobs that are felon friendly. But those type of jobs aren't for everybody. Like, I wasn't designed to be, you know, a landscaper. I'm not a mechanic. But sales is a spectacular industry. Sales creates more millionaires than any other industry. And if you were out here selling drugs, you can get into sales. If you were a gang leader, you've got management skills. You can take those same skills that you had to do negative and do something positive. And when you show up to a job, don't ever do an online app. You say, I'm here to speak to the manager. I've got an interview, whether you do or not. You come in there. I don't care if you get it from Goodwill, come in there with a suit and tie. You shake their hand and you tell them. They want confidence. They don't want to say, hey, I need a job. I got out of prison. My family's struggling. They don't want to hear that. They want you to tell them how you're going to solve their problems. Like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you, sir. Hey, I just want you to know I can be an asset to your team. I'm going to be the first one in, the last one to leave. I'm going to be the best HVAC employee you ever had, the best cook, whatever it is you're doing. You go in there confident and you will get hired, because there's a lot of people out here that don't want to work, that are lazy. You've been working for free out there in the fields, in the kitchen for nothing, for an extra chicken patty. So you get out here and work like you want to take care of your family, and you're going to run circles around a lot of people.
Yeah, Cory, another thing I wanted to ask you about is I saw you posted it on Facebook, and you talked about how you leave prison without it, and that's credit. You had mentioned something about credit. You posted it on Facebook. Can you talk about a little bit about what it took for you to get credit, which a lot of us take for granted?
Absolutely. So I was glad, like I said, when I got in the car industry, I didn't know what a VIN number was. I didn't have a family that taught me about credit or financial literacy. And I think that's one of the places that the school system fails us, is that they don't teach us that But getting in the car business, I started seeing how important it was, and I started wanting to build it. The good thing about someone in prison is a lot of the times you're getting out with no credit, and no credit is a lot easier to get past than bad credit if you got several repos or whatever it might be. So I would say, man, get out, get a secured credit card. You can take $200, go to Capital One or something, get a secured credit card. Only use it for gas at the store. Don't use it to go buy luxury items. Start building your credit. There's nothing that builds your credit faster than an auto loan. So if you get you a little, don't try to go get the Mercedes right off the bat, the Lexus. Just go get you a good, reliable car with some low payments. Use your credit card for gas. Make your payments on time. And within 6 months, your credit will be up to a 650 plus. And it's really important because when you're out here, you're going to want to buy a home for your family. You're going to want to get vehicles. You're going to want to do things. And, you know, when you're able to build that credit, it's going to make it a lot easier. And if you're getting out of prison with zero credit, it's going to be a whole lot easier to build it up than someone that's destroyed it.
Cory,
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, great advice. Cory, why do you go out and you speak to people? You've gone back in, you've spoken to a room full of people who were in the same spot that you were a long time ago. But what do you think? Why do you think it's important for guys? Because a lot of times guys are a little afraid to talk about their past. And I'm just wondering, what makes you want to come out and speak to people who are in the position that you were in, and kind of give them that guidance and give them that pathway. Why is that so important to you?
Your story is the most powerful thing that you have. It's like a snowflake. Each one of us has a unique experience that no one else in the world can duplicate. But there are people in the world that are going through a similar situation. So I'm a big advocate of turning your pain into a purpose. I went through a situation where my kids were taken from me and I had to battle to get them back. Well, there's a lot of fathers that are going through that right now that are on the verge of suicide because they can't see their babies and they need to hear my story. There's a lot of people that are addicted to drugs right now that feel like they're never going to be able to do anything. And when they hear my story, that gives them hope. You got to give it back. The blessings abound when you share your story with others and you give back and you change lives. That's something that money can't buy. And whatever it is that you went through, your unique story, there's someone out there that needs to hear it, that it can change their life. And it's going to bless you to know that you helped do that. So always share your story. Don't be ashamed. And something that I've learned even with the music, the reason I've been on the news, the reason they asked me to speak is the world loves an underdog. They love to hear the story about the guy that dug his way out the hole and clawed and scratched his way to make it. And that's a powerful story. And you got a lot of people that would love to see that guy fall down as well. So you got to make sure you stay straight and you stay focused. But I don't know if y'all know the singer Jelly Roll, but people love an underdog that the odds were against them. So that's a powerful part of your story.
Yeah. That reminds me, that Samuel Jackson I saw this actually on a wall in Florida in an education building in a prison. They were doing quotes by celebrities. And one of them was Samuel Jackson. He said, "The best thing I ever did for myself was to help somebody else."
Absolutely. And, I've had different people speak to me, and you have some counselors that you can tell they had a great childhood. They came from a nice family. Like, hey, I've never smoked a cigarette, but this is why you shouldn't do drugs. And it's like, man, I can't really take you serious. But when you're like, hey, I was out homeless on the street and I didn't sleep for a month and I was doing this and that, but look at me now and you can do the same thing. Like, oh, okay, that's a little bit more powerful, So I feel like it's our duty to share that story and to help pull other people out the depths of hell. Did
you have a mentor, Cory, that helped you in any way, that not necessarily was a staff member, but just somebody that has been a mentor to you?
Yes, I've had several mentors, and I think that's very important as well. Like now I go back to the elementary school and I mentor elementary school kids. And I think especially as men, we need that camaraderie. We need a mentor to give us guidance. While I was in prison, I was in a program and I had a mentor in that. He was a business guy. He gave me encouragement and advice. And then when I got out, I've had several mentors in the car business or that do real estate. And that's another thing I would encourage. Don't be scared to ask questions because a lot of people love to share their wisdom. It makes them feel good. So if you're looking to do real estate, don't be scared to ask the successful real estate agent, hey, sir, do you mind if I buy you lunch? And ask you a couple questions because they love to do that. So that's one thing about me. I'm going to ask any question I have, I'm going to ask. And I'm not going to make it one-sided where I'm just taking, I'm going to, hey, can I take you to dinner? Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you a coffee? And that's important. And 95% of the time, they're happy to share that information.
Well, Cory, I do think your story is very inspirational. I think it's inspirational for those that particularly need to hear it. You could go in and speak 3-4 times in a prison and maybe not even reach one person. But if you reach one person on that 5th time, is it worth those 5 times you went in? You know, can you put a price on humanity? I don't know if you can. So I just want to congratulate you on where you're at, what you're doing. I think you're a great guy.
Man, thank you so much. I think you're awesome as well. And it's good to see somebody. You know, I've been in the system, and of course, I suffered in certain ways, and I want to see changes. But someone like you that was on the other side of the system and still trying to come back after retirement to make it better, that's very admirable. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think a lot of people are going to benefit from the program that y'all are bringing in.
Thanks a lot, Cory. I really appreciate you being here with us today.
Yeah, you've been an inspiration to us too, Cory. Just want to let you know that.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and hopefully somebody watching this will get something positive from it. I love y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Cory.
So with that, we're going to bring up John Palish, and I hope that John Palish can put some perspective on Cory's words. Hi, John.
Hi, John. Oh, I think you're muted.
Good afternoon, Jay and Melissa. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
So what did you think of Cory?
I think Melissa summed it up. Inspirational. You know, I'm always emboldened when I see folks who don't get the breaks, and they don't allow that to prevent them from moving forward. Cory was very clear that he was never handed anything. He didn't get the opportunities that a lot of people get. And rather than allowing himself to wallow in that, he said, no, I'm going to figure out how I seize the opportunities that I do have. How do I create a positive mindset, and how do I use that to move forward? It was really interesting to me to hear him talk about how inquisitive he was and how he was asking questions and looking for information and reading about things. You know, one of the things that we talk about a lot in workforce development is, well, I don't necessarily know what I want to do, or I don't know what industry I want to go into, or I don't know what jobs I'm good at. And Cory didn't know that either, but he thought, well, I'm just going to start reading about stuff, and I'm going to see what I like, and I'm going to follow those passions. And whatever those passions are, whether it's music, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's landscaping, everybody's got different passions, but the ability to kind of acknowledge that I don't know, but there's folks out there, there's information, there's resources out there I can tap into. Let me do that, and that'll help me kind of crystallize where I want to go. I thought that was really powerful what he was saying. And then for all of us and everything we do, you know, and I've got a background in education and workforce development, and in education, we always talk about what is the why. And Cory talked about the why being his daughter. That's what kept him motivated. So everybody's going to have a different background. Everybody's going to have different challenges. Everyone's going to have different opportunities, and everyone's going to have a different why. But once we start to identify, well, this is my why. This is why I'm doing it. Maybe it's my daughter. Maybe it's my significant other. Maybe it's my family. Maybe it's my pets. Maybe it's my desire for a better life. Whatever that why is, understand what that is and allow that to kind of power you and fuel you. I think that's a really incredible message for him to share.
Yeah. what did you think about him all the things that he was bringing together? And that was all while he was incarcerated. So just being able to put his hands on as many things as he could possibly find. And I know that some of that has changed now in the prisons, or starting to change in the prison system. So for me, I thought that was incredibly powerful, that he just made his way into anything he could get his hands on. And, I think that's something that everyone who is right now incarcerated should be thinking about. What are the things that I can get my hands on, and what are some things that I can do to get myself prepared as I take that journey out of here. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I think journey is a great word, because we're all on different pathways, and pathways lead to success. And it was clear for Cory, he said, I had to start by getting my GED. And then he stayed diligent, and he started building on the successes that he had. And this applies to everybody and everything we do. We very rarely go from point A to exactly where we want to be. There's usually a number of steps along the way. But if you're able to build on that, if you're able to stack successes on top of each other, we talk a lot in workforce development about it's as easy as ABC. It's a job, it's a better job, it's a career. So when you're getting your first job, you don't think, wow, I'm going to do this for the next 50 years of my life. This is the greatest job ever. No, you get a job, it teaches you some skills, you realize I like this, I don't like this, and then you start to build on that. And then you get your next job, and then you find you've got a better job, and now you're starting to build a pathway. So that was really powerful when you hear him talk about where he started from.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just started building and stacking successes on top of each other, and it allowed him to be where he is, which is a car mogul, a real estate mogul, a reporting mogul. He's got all these different pathways, but he didn't let the circumstances or the lack of opportunity that he had prevent him from doing the things that he knew in his heart he wanted to do. And we could all learn something from that, rather than suffering a defeat or a setback and saying, oh, well, this isn't for me, or I'm never going to succeed at this, or somebody else got another opportunity and I didn't, so I'm going to take my ball and go home. Cory said, no, okay, I'll just build on that. I'll learn from that, and I'll move forward. And that's really empowering. And more folks would be wise to take that to heart, to realize that things aren't linear. It's not always positive. We don't always know the exact direction we're going in, but if we start that journey, if we get on a pathway, and we just stay diligent, and we really push ourselves, and we follow those passions we have, likely we're going to end up in a successful place, because we know what that why is. That North Star has kept us balanced.
Yeah. And dress for success, right? I thought that was such good advice going in, is, go in there and act like you're getting the job, go in and be confident and do those things. So I thought that was great too.
That was such great advice. Wear a suit, go in person, and shake the individual's hand. Yeah. That seems obvious, but it's not. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that. But just showing up and saying, hey, I'm here, I can do this, I'm ready to help. I didn't just send in a resume online. I didn't just make a phone call. I put in some effort. And the fact that he got his suit from Walmart doesn't matter. He could have gotten his suit from Brooks Brothers or, Hermes or wherever. It doesn't matter. He put in the effort, and the individual on the other side of the table saw that and thought, well, this individual didn't have a whole lot of opportunities, but the few he's had, he's taken advantage of, and he's done the best that he can. So that's the type of employee I want, is somebody who's got that initiative and that drive, who's going to do the best they can with whatever's in front of them. And that's all we can ask for from anybody, from our loved ones, from our colleagues, from our bosses, from our direct reports, whoever it is. Just can I trust this person to keep moving forward and to keep giving me the best that they've got? That's really impactful.
So, John, one of the things, your specialty background is facts and figures when it comes to jobs and people for them. And so there's a lot of people that will be leaving a jail or prison over this next year. Can you talk about those numbers, and are those is there openings out there for them?
Yeah, so I'll try not to overwhelm you with too many statistics, but you're right. I kind of live in data because I think it tells a story. And we all know, on average, there's about 600,000 individuals re-entering communities every year. So let's just keep that number in mind, 600,000. Right now, today, there's about 2 million people that are collecting unemployment insurance because they recently lost a job. So we've got 600,000 re-entering. We've got 2 million who are unemployed and looking for work. Yet the number of open jobs available in the country right now is 7.2 million. So even if every person who was looking for a job found a job, and everybody who was returning to a community found a job, that's barely a third of the open jobs that are available. So there will always be jobs available, even in an uncertain economy that we have right now. You can't turn on the news without hearing about, oh my gosh, is the economy going to crash? Are we going to go into recession? Good, bad, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's still 7 million jobs open. So there's always jobs available, and employers are always looking for individuals like Cory, who are motivated, who are attentive, who are smart, who are going to move that ball forward. So there will always be opportunities, and we just need to be smart about it and realize, okay, these are the opportunities where I'm likely to succeed. Let me go after those. Let me chase those. And another couple of stats I would throw at you is the labor force participation rate, which I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but it's the number of working age adults who are actually working. That number is below where it was pre-pandemic. And all that means is we're still trying to backfill all of the positions that were lost during the pandemic. That was 5 years ago. So employers are still trying to hire up to the level that we were at 5 years ago. And our economy tends to grow, not retract like it did during the pandemic. So there are plenty of opportunities out there. We've just got to figure out, again, where our passions are, where what we can add to the individual job, and then go grab that job and say, hey, I'm the person you're looking for. I've got the skills, I've got the mindset, and I'm ready to go.
So another thing, John, I wanted to ask you about is that one of their barriers that they have in place is when they go to fill out an application, there's that check that box, right? Do you have a felony in your past? Do you have a misdemeanor in your past? It used to be that hardly anybody would hire somebody with a criminal record, but a very large portion of the United States population, because we are the most heavily incarcerated country in the world, actually have something on their record. And do you think the tide is starting to turn on that, or do we need to keep pushing to turn it more?
Yes and yes. I think the tide is turning. There are a number of states that are moving forward with ban the box initiatives, but I don't think that's enough. And when we talk about banning the box, that really speaks to what Cory was talking about. It's much easier if I'm a hiring manager, if I'm looking at a piece of paper and you check that box to say, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with that, I'm going to move on. It's much harder if you're sitting across the table from me and you say, yeah, I checked that box, and let me explain to you why. Let me explain to you the mistake that I made and how I'm going to be better going forward. So we as a country are not doing enough. We need to do more, but I think the trend is in the right direction. Again, because I think businesses are realizing this is a labor pool that we need to tap into because we have too many open positions. So we're starting to realize again, as we were before the pandemic, that, hey, this is a population that can do the job, and we need to be more receptive to them. So we're starting to see that interest pick back up. And again, I don't want to go down the political road, but the current administration is very aggressive on immigration. Well, if they're successful with that, what's going to happen to all those jobs? There's going to be even more jobs open for individuals who raise their hand and say, hey, I can do that thing. So I think we are moving in the right direction. I think that the energy is positive. It's not far enough, but again, everything is incremental. But I think if we look at it from a realistic view, yes, there are opportunities out there. There are individuals who you can have conversations with and explain your story and explain to them why maybe you weren't given the opportunity, you made a bad decision, you were running with the wrong crew, whatever the case may be. But here's what I'm going to do going forward. You know, Cory said, here's how I'm going to solve your problems. That's what employers want. Hey, I got problems, whatever it is. I'm not selling enough things. I'm not moving enough things. I'm not building enough things. I'm not doing whatever. If you can come in and say, hey, I can build things, or I can move things, or I can sell things, that's what they want to hear is, how are you going to help me? And then I'll help you. So I think the momentum is positive. We're not there yet. I don't know that we're going to be there in the near future, but as long as that trend continues, as long as more and more governors say, hey, why do we have this box in it? We don't need this. This is silly. This is not indicative of whether somebody's going to be a success in the job or not. And we know that from, going back to data, we know that from the data. We know the most important factor in addressing recidivism is getting a job. And we know that folks who have criminal records actually tend to stay in jobs longer than those who don't. So just letting employers know that, hey, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm ready to go. Let's do this together. That's what they need to hear.
Yeah, I could tell you, I've seen some absolutely incredible talent inside corrections that, when Melissa and I would go into a facility to make a presentation and they didn't have a TV ready for us, they'd bring in a couple guys and they'd mount one up on the wall faster than I could get my computer out and hook it up to it.
Absolutely. And Jay, you've spent what, 26, 32 years? How long were you inside the facilities?
32 years.
32 years. You've met countless people who you thought, oh my gosh, if I'd love for this guy to be on my staff. I'd love to hire this individual because look at the way they work, look at their work ethic, look at their determination. And employers know that. They instinctively know that. They don't want to disregard applicants simply because they checked a box. But it becomes an easy, lazy thing for them to do. And that's why, again, showing up is so important. The ability to put a name to a face, not just a checkbox on a piece of paper. But hey, I'm Cory and I'm here and I'm serious about this and here's how I'm going to help you. That's really, really a smart thing to do.
Yeah, Cory started selling a lot of cars. He told me this story, and he said he started getting questions from people. Do you really have 5 years experience? He had to come clean on that.
But we're, as a society, we're even moving away from, we talked about banning the box. We're starting to move away from degree requirements on jobs because, again, we're starting to realize that's not the answer either. The same way checking a box isn't the answer, a degree isn't the answer. I could have a degree in ballet dance. How does that help me in a manufacturing firm? Yeah. Or I could have a degree in manufacturing. How does that help me in healthcare? It doesn't. The same thing with ban the box. So I think employers are starting to realize we used to use these shortcuts, but maybe that's not the best way to get the most qualified employees by just eliminating those who don't have a degree or by eliminating those who have checked the box. And I think they're starting to release some of that to say, hey, let's look at some of those other candidates because we have all these positions and we're actually pretty unsuccessful at finding people. So let's see if we can't tap into more labor pools and see if there aren't populations out there that for whatever reason we weren't thinking about, one of which is those who don't have college degrees, one of which is those who maybe have checked the box. So how do we start to look at them and see maybe they're better fits for us? Because candidly, we got 7.2 million jobs open. We can't be doing that good of a job in the ponds that we're fishing in. So we need to start fishing in other ponds.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice for not just someone who is incarcerated, not just someone. I think that's a good advice for everyone to be looking at all of those things and not just pigeonholing yourself into one place. We often, at least from my generation, that's you. If you were going to be a teacher, you're going to be a teacher for life. If you're going to be a car salesman, you're going to be a car salesman for life. All of those kinds of things are changing. And people are finding that, they might have talents in other areas, or they might go into a trade school. They might go into different things, art school, whatever it is. But there might be different places that they get all of those skills, and then they have more to offer the world. The world of jobs and labor and all of those things. So I think that's a really good point.
Absolutely. And our industries are becoming so much more complex. It used to be that there was an IT sector. Well, now I can be an IT person in healthcare. I can be an IT person in manufacturing. I can be a IT person in construction because IT is everywhere.
Yes.
So the idea that I know exactly what I want to do, like I said, and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. No, you might not even be thinking about going into healthcare because you're like, I don't like healthcare. I don't like blood or whatever, but I'm an IT expert, and every individual in a hospital is walking around with a laptop, and they've got it in a little cart, and they're going from bed to bed, and they're typing things into the laptop. So right there, IT. Okay, maybe IT is for me, and maybe there's an opportunity in healthcare which I never thought of, because I'm working on the systems and the infrastructure that they have to keep track of medical records and whatnot. So just keeping an open mind about that, and not trying to say, well, I don't want to go into that industry, or I don't want that type of job. When we realize that our jobs and our industries are really much more complicated and blended than they used to be, that there's opportunities everywhere. There's opportunities for growth everywhere.
Well, John, I think both you and Cory have given given our audience a lot to think about. And I think there's been a lot of good advice there. And I want to thank you for coming on with us today and putting some perspective behind Cory's words.
Glad to do it, and I'm certain that Cory's words were much more impactful and meaningful. So I'm glad to be able to be second place behind him.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John.
All right, thank you both. Take care.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Reentry Roads. We hope this conversation has illuminated the realities of reentry, the obstacles, the triumphs, and the relentless determination of those who refuse to be defined by their past. A heartfelt thank you to our guests, Cory Simek, John Palish, for sharing their invaluable insights and experiences. Their stories serve as powerful reminder that transformation is possible when opportunity meets determination. We also want to extend our gratitude to our directors, Workbay Chief Videographer James Liberian and Christian Price, for bringing this episode to life. Most importantly, thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. If today's discussion resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. We'll be back soon with more stories, insights, and perspectives for those navigating the road to reentry. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's keep breaking down the barriers together. This broadcast was brought to you by Workbay.
Inside Texas correctional facilities, transformation is happening. Individuals are gaining real-world skills, certifications, and career pathways, ensuring that when they leave, they are prepared for success. With dedicated access to training programs, career exploration, and resume-building tools, incarcerated individuals are actively preparing for employment while still inside. An automated collaborative system with filters for job posts appropriate to candidates and their location. A controlled path to employment with learning and career exploration built around local employers. Playlists of learning that provide an invitation to interview available upon release. A multilingual platform that meets cybersecurity requirements for Texas and ADA compatibility. Upon release, the same technology continues to support them. TDCJ's websiteforwork.com is the next step. A direct link between returning citizens and employers ready to offer opportunities. Upon release, job seekers have a single, comprehensive employment record, showcasing their training, skills, certifications, and assessments all in one resume, making it easy for employers to identify qualified candidates. For case managers inside, these programs provide a clear pathway, guiding individuals from training to real employment opportunities. For employers outside, this is a pipeline of job-ready candidates with verified skills, credentials, and work experience, making hiring easier and more reliable. The Bartlett Unit is home to high-demand training in veterinary care and farrier work with hands-on programs involving dogs, chickens, rabbits, and horses.
Some of my more technical guys who are ready to get their A+ or Net Plus certification, they can make $60,000 a year coming out the door.
They get their training here. We've had dudes, they start out as janitors and end up becoming welders after a while.
Now, businesses, workforce agencies, and community leaders can be part of the solution. helping to break the cycle of incarceration by offering real opportunities.
It's something that I've only dreamed about, that I get to live the life that I'm living today. I was reunited with my family, I got an amazing job, and I got a credit score today.
Here in prison, I have achieved an associate's degree in applied science and welding technology, and also an associate's degree in applied science and business management.
We have an application on our tablets when it comes to mechanical, architectural drafting, CNC, that kind of thing. It's called building information modeling. Those are the jobs that I personally would look into because I have a construction background from before I was incarcerated. This kind of compounded it. It added on to it, you know.
We just got a new app yesterday, a job application app. And I was thinking about this last night and this morning, how much of a blessing these things are, right? Because you can become a productive member of society.
This is a untapped market in prison. There are so many in prison that have a wide array of talents. All they need is the support from the public, and hopefully this will be a springboard for that to happen.
Join us in turning potential into a stronger workforce. Learn more at websiteforwork.com.